Hi everyone, before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I am a bodyguard for a powerful underworld boss. When his daughter returned from abroad, she stared at me with an intensity that suggested she was digging for buried secrets. My boss narrowed his eyes. You two know each other? I kept my voice steady. Not well, sir. That was a lie. Later, Selena cornered me. She didn't just come for a talk. She came for a kiss, her hands already sliding under the hem of my shirt. Not well, she whispered against my lips. Darling, I know every inch of your body by heart. I leaned against the wall, a cigarette dangling from my mouth, eyes hooded as I let her press her weight into me. It had been 5 years. She had grown taller, her curves more pronounced, her presence more lethal. Her hands didn't stop at my waist, they ventured lower. I narrowed my eyes and caught her mischievous hand, a low warning vibrating in my chest. Don't push it. Selena wasn't intimidated. She kept her palm pressed firmly against me, a triumphant smirk dancing on her lips. Your body is telling a different story, Dante. It says you missed me. She was arrogant, fueled by a confidence that knew no fear. I realized then that I had spoiled her far too much in the past. Slowly, I refastened my belt and looked at her with cold indifference. Anyone who touches me like that gets a reaction, I said flatly. I pushed her head away and took a long look at her. She was as breathtaking as ever, a face designed to make a man lose his mind. But I'd already been ruined by that beauty once. If I let myself fall again, I'd be the ultimate fool. I gave her cheek a condescending pat. You're nothing special, Selena. Just another pretty face. There's a saying, once bitten by a snake, twice shy of a rope. Selena was that snake. 5 years ago, she was 18. She wore crisp white shirts and pleated blue uniforms, looking every bit the pristine student. But she played the drums for a bar band, and amidst a crowd of garish, flashy people, she was the sun. She had this intoxicating aura, a mix of wide-eyed innocence and deliberate provocation that was impossible to resist. I had just been released from prison back then, working as a bouncer at that very bar. I get into 7 fights a night, and every single one of them was because of her. She would casually toss her rings or bracelets into the crowd from the stage, just to watch the men tear each other apart for a souvenir. She loved to light a fire she had no intention of putting out. Eventually, her games caught up to her when a group of drunks cornered her in an alley. I happened to be passing by and saved her life. Her collar had been torn open, and a red handprint was beginning to bloom across her cheek. As she watched me break bones for her, she leaned against a brick wall and clapped, her eyes sparkling with dark delight. I remember thinking, how can a girl this young be this shameless? After I laid out the 2 drunks, Selena sauntered over. She raised her foot and stomped hard on one of their groins. You wanted a piece of me, she spat as the man howled in agony. Look in a mirror and see if you're even worthy first. I drew in a sharp breath and pulled Selena back. That's enough. Her expression shifted instantly, her voice turning sweet. Thank you, Dante. Then, she spun around and delivered another brutal kick to the other man. She stuck her tongue out at me. 1 for each of them. It's only fair. I let out a frustrated laugh. I turned my back and walked away, intending to leave her behind for good. But Selena followed me, trailing me all the way to the entrance of my apartment. Dante, I have nowhere to go. She looked up at me with those wide eyes. If you're going to save someone, finish the job. Let me stay for just 1 night. When I asked about her parents, she simply said, I'm an orphan. Looking at that beautiful face, my resolve crumbled. But softening my heart meant more than just giving her a place to stay. When Selena decided to seduce someone, there was no escape. She eventually cornered me in the bathroom. Dante, everyone wants a piece of me, she whispered, tilting her head to kiss my jaw. Don't you? I won't let them have me. I only want you. Who could resist that? To be honest, the first time I saw her on that bar stage, I had already imagined every possible scenario in my head. Now, the real thing was standing right in front of me, saying those words. I couldn't take it anymore. Later, as she lay draped over me, she complained about being cold. I felt sorry for her. She was so young. So I let her have her way, letting her stay on top. But pampering her once meant there would be a second time. Eventually, things went too far. I remember the night she bit the back of my neck on the stairs of that grimy bar. She sank her fangs in deep, and I had to grit my teeth to keep from making a sound. Even though the bar was deafening, The risk of being caught was there, and Selena loved it. She lived for the thrill, and I was more than willing to endure it. Once or twice, I could have walked away. But after we had slept together so many times, my feelings began to shift. When I realized I was falling for her, I confronted her. Either get serious with me, or we're done. She looked at me with a stunning smile. Dante, aren't we already in love? I gave you my first time. Are you really planning to dump me now? She was only 18 then, repeating her senior year of high school. She was young, not yet ready to think about the future. But I couldn't help but think about it. I had a criminal record. My life was already a dead end. But her future was still wide open. I couldn't let her rot with me in these dark, filthy alleys. I started to look after her, pushing her to study hard. Surprisingly, Selena became obedient. She stopped being flirtatious and focused entirely on her university entrance exams. To give her peace of mind, I quit my job at the bar. I took care of her 3 meals a day and drove her to her exams. At that time, I had ripped my heart out and given it all to her, keeping nothing for myself. But Selena had played me. My world shattered the day an old colleague told me they had spotted her in an exclusive private club. I didn't want to believe it, not until I saw her with my own eyes, stepping out of that place with a pack of wealthy socialites. I followed them, lingering close enough to catch their conversation. Hey, that delivery guy. Aren't you bored of playing house yet? One of them teased. Dump him already. I think the poor sap actually believes he's putting you through university. Another chimed in. Does a rich heiress like you even need to take entrance exams? You're flying abroad in July anyway. Selena, is that blue-collar guy any good in bed? Is he worth the effort? I've never tried that type before. Selena shot her a cold look, exhaled a cloud of crimson-tipped smoke, and without a word, pressed the glowing cherry of her cigarette directly onto the girl's tongue. If you don't know how to speak, keep your mouth shut. At that moment, I wanted to charge in and slap the truth out of her. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called her. She glanced at the screen and ignored it. Selena, why don't you pick up? Someone asked. Selena stood tall and slender, her eyes and brow etched with sheer irritation as she whispered, He's too controlling. The call timed out, so I called again. She sighed, her expression instantly shifting into a bright, flowery smile as she answered. Darling, the speed of her transformation almost made me laugh. It was pure performance, a scene straight out of Sichuan face-changing opera. So fake. Selena, I said into the phone. Turn around. Suddenly, a sharp pain in my wrist jerked me back to the present. Selena was squeezing my arm, her grip terrifyingly tight. Who touched you? She hissed. Who are you comparing me to? Have you been testing other women while I was gone? Her voice was soft, but her eyelashes trembled as if she might cry the second I said yes. I brushed her hand off with a cold laugh. What does it matter to you? It matters because you belong to me. You aren't allowed to try anyone else. You're insane. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering erupted from downstairs, followed by the frantic, agitated voice of Sasha. Where's Dante? I want to see Dante. Call him here right now. Tell him I'm having an episode. Tell him to come. Sasha was Selena's younger sister and the youngest daughter of my boss, the Lion. For years ago, she had been kidnapped by enemies and nearly lost her life. I was the one who happened to save her, which was why the Lion brought me into their household as a personal bodyguard. Because I had rescued Sasha in her darkest hour, she had developed a dependency on me that bordered on pathological. In the beginning, she forced me to stay by her side 24 hours a day. If I wasn't there, she would spiral into insecurity or total madness. I shoved Selena aside and ran downstairs. Everything in the living room that could be broken had been smashed to pieces. Sasha was gripping the armrests of her wheelchair, her breathing ragged and frantic. I rushed over and knelt before her, speaking in a low, soothing voice. Miss, I'm here. The moment Sasha saw me, her tears began to flow and her body finally relaxed. Dante, where did you go? I couldn't find you. I had a nightmare, and you were nowhere. I'm here now. Don't be afraid. I lifted her from the wheelchair and carried her back upstairs. I stayed by her side until she drifted off to sleep. Selena stood on the second floor, her head slightly bowed, her posture stiff and upright. As I passed her, she tugged at the hem of my shirt and whispered my name. Dante. In my arms, Sasha stirred, burying her face against my chest and tightening her grip around my neck. I brushed Selena's hand away and quickened my pace up the stairs. Before Sasha finally closed her eyes, she clutched my hand with a trembling, stubborn strength. "Dante, don't leave, please." Her voice was small. She was younger than Selena, and her feelings were transparent. Nothing more than the desperate possessiveness of a wounded child. I ruffled her hair gently. "I'm not going anywhere. Just sleep." In the dead of night, my phone buzzed. It was my boss, the Lion. Something had happened to Selena. She had snuck out at midnight to drag race against one of our rivals. The other side had played dirty, sabotaging her car. Selena's vehicle had nearly plummeted off a cliff, and now the two factions were at each other's throats. "I'm in Central City and can't get back immediately," the boss growled. "Dante, get down there and handle it." By the time I arrived at Eagle Peak with the team, the scene was pure chaos. Selena was standing over a man named Kalen, a knife gripped in her hand, poised to plunge it into his eye. I swore under my breath and barked at her to stop. I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "Calm down." The tension in Selena's body, tight as a bowstring, slowly began to bleed away. She turned her blood-streaked face toward me. "Dante, I almost died just now. I only wanted one of his eyes. That's not too much to ask, is it?" She let out a soft laugh and dropped the knife. "But if you don't want me to take my revenge, then I don't want anything at all. I'll be good." She looked up at me obediently, her eyes shimmering like a puppy waiting for a scrap of praise. "You always liked it best when I listened to you, didn't you?" In that moment, the way she looked at me made it seem as if I were her entire world, as if I could bully her, trample her, or possess her however I pleased. But it was all an act. I knew that now. I swallowed hard and coldly averted my gaze. Picking up the knife from the dirt, I pulled her to her feet and shoved her behind me. I scanned the area until I found an iron pipe. Before Kalen could scramble to his feet, I swung the pipe with everything I had, crushing it against the back of his knee. A debt must be paid, but I couldn't let Selena get her hands dirty. I was the one the family hired to do the filthy work. I tossed a business card at the pathetic bastard on the ground. "Call the number. The family will cover the medical bills. Get yourself patched up. Try not to end up a cripple." I threw the pipe aside, grabbed Selena, and headed for the car. The second we got inside, she pinned me against the driver's seat. She was like a rabid animal, lunging forward to sink her teeth into my lip. Her limbs moved with a frantic desperation, fumbling over every inch of me until my clothes were a tangled mess. I was caught off guard. It was as if Selena had been driven past the point of sanity. She clung to my arm with a life-or-death grip, refusing to let me push her back. The transition from a young girl to a woman had certainly changed her. She showered me in wild, chaotic kisses, mumbling words that felt like a blur of lies and half-truths. "I knew you wouldn't leave me. You still love me." Her lips traveled from my mouth to my jaw, then down to my neck. The kisses were forceful, bordering on painful, but they were more intoxicating than anything else. It was just as she once said, we knew each other's bodies far too well. Damn it. If this continued, I'd be under her spell again. Just as she reached my lower abdomen, I grabbed her by the hair and yanked her up. "Stop it," I commanded, my voice strained. Selena licked her lips, her eyes glowing crimson, and grabbed my hand, trying to pull it back down. "Go ahead and be afraid, Dante," she challenged. I gritted my teeth, simmering with a rage that felt like it would boil over. I wrapped my hand around her throat, not to hurt her, but to keep her at a distance, and shoved her back. "Stop faking this deep devotion, Selena. You're the one who walked away first." Years ago, the way I had doted on her was enough to make anyone sick with jealousy. Looking back now, it was nothing but a farce. That day, when Selena turned around and saw me standing there, her face went deathly pale. I stood there and witnessed her panic firsthand. I threw my phone at her. "I'm done with you, Selena. Get out of my sight. Now." I turned to walk away, feeling as if a hole had been punched through my chest, letting the freezing wind howl through. Selena chased after me, wrapping her arms around me from behind in a suffocating embrace. Her hot tears fell against my neck. "Dante, you heard everything, didn't you? I didn't mean to say those things. I didn't stay away on purpose. I was wrong. I know I messed up. I'll be good from now on, I promise." She was trembling with terror, kissing my neck and ears in a frantic mess. "Please, Dante, don't leave me." She actually had the nerve to cry. She had the audacity to hold on to me as if she couldn't let go. If anyone should have been crying, it was me. I pried her off and looked her in the eye. Selena, can you stop playing games with me? I'm 28 years old. I just want someone to spend my life with. I can't play this sport anymore. Back then, I truly, deeply loved her. Even knowing she was a liar, I loved her. But I couldn't spend my life kneeling at her feet, letting her trample over me. I'm human too, but Selena wouldn't let me go. She knew exactly how to linger, how to pull at the threads of my resolve. She would crouch in front of my door, acting as pathetic as a stray dog. No matter what I did, I couldn't drive her away. Then came the night she called me, claiming her drink had been spiked at a bar. She let them drag her away right in front of me, wanted to see me snap, wanted me to charge in and play the hero. Afterward, she'd just come back with that playful smirk and kiss me like nothing happened. If you don't come for me, I'll kill them and then turn myself in, she'd say. I was trembling with rage. Selena, do you really have to destroy yourself like this? She was burning with fever, kissing my hands, my throat. If you ignore me, I really will break, Dante. If you truly don't care, you can walk away right now. Leave me to the others. I couldn't walk away. I couldn't stand there and watch others play with her. Selena was like a cigarette. Once you're hooked, it's hell to quit. I knew she was lying through her teeth, a master of manipulation. Yet I plunged headfirst into her trap like a man possessed. When she was 18, Selena pinned me against the door. She kissed my stomach, knelt before me, and clung to my waist like a devout worshiper making a vow. Dante, I'll never leave you as long as I live. Can you please forgive me? I gripped her hair tight, thinking to myself, to hell with it. I couldn't tear myself away from her anyway. I tried to patch up the wounds in my heart, telling myself just one more time. Believe her just one more time. But exactly when I was most addicted to her, Selena vanished. Without a single word, she went completely radio silent. Those vows that came out of her mouth were worth nothing more than a puff of air. Now, back in the present, she was trying to explain, saying she didn't mean it. I cut her off. I don't want to hear it. It doesn't matter anymore. When I wanted an explanation, you didn't give me one. Now, I don't give a damn. I straightened my clothes and looked her in the eye. I only want to know one thing. When you agreed to that race tonight, did you know the car had been tampered with? Selena let out a soft laugh, admitting it with chilling indifference. I knew. She knew it was a death trap, yet she got in anyway. She used her own life as bait just to lure me out, didn't she? Selena was an expert at these games. She loved standing on the edge of the abyss, watching me panic for her, watching me risk my life for hers. I was worried sick while she was smug, knowing she held all the cards. That feeling must have been a hell of a high for her. With just a flick of her finger, she could make my emotions explode and watch me spin around her like a dog. It's pathetic, Selena. 5 years later, and you're still playing the same script. Aren't you bored? What are you trying to prove? I still have feelings for you. I tilted my head to look at her. To be honest, if it wasn't for the life of the Lion's eldest daughter, I wouldn't have spared you a single glance tonight. Whether you live or die, Selena, it no longer matters to me. If you want to die, go do it somewhere else. Don't drag me into it. The smile on Selena's face slowly withered away. If I don't matter, then who does? Sasha? Have you fallen for her? Is that why you don't want me anymore? Her eyes were bloodshot, her emotions raw and frantic as she spat out venomous words. What's so special about her? She's not as beautiful as me, and she's a cripple to boot. Does she actually excite you? Or do you just have a thing for 18-year-old girls? Shut your mouth. I raised my hand and slapped her, my own body trembling with rage. Sasha is your sister. Humiliate me all you want, but leave her out of this. The force of the blow snapped Selena's head to the side, her disheveled hair masking her eyes. She remained silent for a long time, then slowly raised a hand to wipe the blood from the corner of her lip. Sasha is not my sister, she said softly. She looked up, her dark eyes deep, cold, and terrifyingly calm. Dante, have you really given your heart to her? Something that belongs to me. How could you give it to someone else? She isn't worthy of you. I'll show you. The only person worthy of you is me. By the time we returned to the Lion's estate, it was 4 a.m. The sky was still pitch black, but the living room lights were blazing. Sasha turned her head, and the moment she saw me, her eyes lit up. Dante, you're back. Selena trailed behind me, lingering in my shadow. Sasha saw her, and her grip tightened on the armrest of her wheelchair. Her expression grew stiff as she forced out a single word. Sister. Selena didn't even lift an eyelid in acknowledgement. I walked over quickly and knelt in front of Sasha. Why are you up so early? Sasha lowered her gaze, looking dejected. I woke up in the middle of the night, and you weren't there. I couldn't go back to sleep. A pang of guilt hit me. I had promised to stay by her side last night, and I had broken that promise. Sasha's eyes quietly scanned my face, and then she suddenly reached out to touch my mouth. Dante, why is your lip so swollen? Her icy finger brushed against my burning lips. I felt a surge of unease. Because I kissed him. Selena leaned in from behind me. She bent over, reaching past me to brusquely knock Sasha's hand away. Take a closer look. His tongue is probably swollen too. Sasha bit her lip, staring at Selena as her face turned deathly pale. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to slam Selena's head into the wall. I reached out towards Sasha. Don't listen to her nonsense. Let me carry you upstairs so you can get some more rest. But before I could touch her, Selena yanked Sasha's wheelchair back. She stepped past me and lifted Sasha into her arms herself. I'll take her up to sleep. You've been exhausted all night. Dante, go get some rest. Sasha struggled in her arms, letting out a desperate cry for help. Dante, I didn't move. I let Selena take her away. Sasha couldn't keep leaning on me forever. When it came down to it, I was an outsider. Even the boss had hinted at it before. Dante, he'd said, you can't stay by Sasha's side for her entire life. There are paths she has to walk on her own. For the past year, I had been intentionally creating distance between us. Last night was only because she had pushed things too far that I was forced to step in. After the boss returned to Hangzhou, he gradually began handing over portions of his power to Selena. He told me, Dante, Selena is too extreme in her methods. Keep an eye on her for me. It's the only way I'll have peace of mind. But Selena wasn't just extreme. She was reckless, cruel, and cold-blooded. She made enemies as easily as she drew breath. Even though the Lion family now operated through legitimate businesses, their foundation was built on the shadow world. When you push people too hard, the knives and guns inevitably come out. There were several times Selena was targeted for revenge, each one a brush with death. The worst incident left her with a stab wound to the abdomen that kept her hospitalized for 3 months. I sat in the hallway and smoked half a pack of cigarettes before walking back into her room. I'm begging you, I said. Just try to stay alive. Selena was pale and sickly, yet she still had the nerve to act flirtatious. Kiss me, and I'll keep myself safe. One kiss, and I'll study hard. One kiss, and I'll stay out of the bars. One kiss, and I won't leave your side. All lies. I looked down at her and said flatly, Selena, stop degrading yourself. The 6 months I spent working for her felt longer than the last 3 years combined. I was constantly on the move, rarely returning to the main estate. Finally, on the boss's birthday, the mansion was lit up for a grand celebration. I was crouching in the back garden, having a smoke, when a voice caught me off guard. Dante, I looked up. Sasha was sitting on the second-story windowsill. She looked down at me and asked, Dante, if I jump from here, would you catch me? I nearly swallowed my cigarette. I pointed a finger at her and barked, Don't move. Wait for me to get up there. I sprinted to the second floor and lifted her down from the window. Her forehead was slick with sweat. Before I could even open my mouth to scold her, Sasha suddenly threw her arms around my waist, gripping me with a desperate strength. 142 days, Dante. It's been 142 days. My throat went dry. I struggled to find my voice. I'm sorry. I've been busy lately. I was busy, yes, but I was also avoiding her. Dante, if only my legs still worked. Her hot tears began to soak into my shirt. Then I wouldn't have to sit here waiting for you. I could be like her. I could be the one holding on to you. I felt a surge of heat rush through me. I reached down and gently pushed Sasha back. Miss, let go of me first. Her warm hands suddenly slipped beneath my shirt, pressing against the small of my back. Dante, she whispered. Anything Selena can do, I can do too. Can't you care for me just a little bit? Suddenly, I felt an unnatural heat surging through my veins. I realized I didn't even have the strength to push Sasha away anymore. I had been too tense to notice it at first, but a strange fragrance hung heavy in the room. Judging by the haze in my mind, it was almost certainly an aphrodisiac. Sasha trailed a string of soft kisses across my abdomen, her hands trembling, her face awash with tears. Don't push me away. Dante, I'm begging you. I grabbed her hands, but before I could utter a word, the door was flung open. Selena appeared, violently yanking me back behind her. She delivered a stinging slap across Sasha's face and raised her leg to kick her, but I barked out a command instantly. Selena, stop. I caught her arm in a vice grip. She froze. Her leg didn't descend. Turning her back to me, she said, Dante, can you please stop protecting her right in front of me? When she finally turned her head, the corners of her eyes were bloodshot. I won't hit her anymore, but don't play the hero for someone else. Please. I didn't have the mental capacity to listen to her nonsense. The sensation inside me had become nauseatingly intense. Gasping for air, I gripped her wrist. Call a doctor. Give me a sedative. Now. Selena didn't answer. She just dragged me out of the room. Behind us, Sasha's screams echoed down the hall. Don't go. Dante, you can't go with her. I still had a shred of logic left. I knew exactly what Selena was planning. Selena, call a doctor. I forced out through gritted teeth. I am a doctor, she replied. By the time we reached her room, my brain felt like it was on fire. When Selena leaned in to kiss me, I took control, pinning her against the door. I buried my fingers in her hair, holding her head still as I claimed her mouth with a desperate hunger. Selena seemed as though she'd taken a hit of something herself. She was even more feral than I was. She tore my shirt, kissing my arms and neck, whispering frantically, Dante, I missed you. I really, truly missed you. We were like two wild animals trying to devour one another. The next morning, buttons were scattered God knows where. Clothes were strewn from the door to the windowsill, and the furniture was in total disarray. Selena was gone. I stood by the window and lit a cigarette. My phone vibrated. It was a message from the lion. Come to the third floor, the ancestral hall. The hall was where the family kept their shrine to Lord Guan. Inside the dimly lit room, Selena was kneeling with a straight back. The boss sat on a sofa to one side, his face unreadable. Next to her lay a rattan whip. To dare raise a hand against your own blood under this roof. Selena. The boss's voice was cold. Is this how you act as an older sister? Selena let out a frigid laugh. Have you forgotten? My mother only ever gave birth to one daughter, me. The lion's eyes darkened, his voice dropping into a steady, dangerous calm. If you won't admit your fault, you will accept the punishment. He handed the rattan whip to me, commanding me to carry out the sentence. I opened my mouth, trying to find the words. Sir, last night, it wasn't entirely her fault. The lion looked up, his gaze tranquil, yet brooking no refusal. Dante, strike. I bow my head. Yes, sir. There was no point in arguing. The boss knew everything. This was the lion's estate. Every breath taken within these walls was recorded. He wanted to reprimand Selena, protect Sasha, and, most importantly, send a warning to me. 100 lashes. Selena kept her back straight, never bending, never uttering a single groan. By the time I was finished, I was soaked in more sweat than she was. She struggled to stand, leaning her weight against me as she looked at her father. Want to keep going? She challenged. I helped her out of the ancestral hall. She remained silent, seemingly lost in thought. As we turned the corner on the third floor, she suddenly pressed her shoulder into mine and leaned close to my ear. Dante, let me buy you a whip of your own, she whispered. Next time I don't listen, just hit me. Her face was flushed, her voice a sultry murmur. Just thinking about being hit by you, it feels so good. Selena, I growled, stop being so damn shameless. I got her back to her room, and my phone buzzed again with a text, the study. I gripped the phone tight, standing outside the door for a long minute before stepping inside. The boss was leaning against the balcony railing. He beckoned me over. Come here. As I approached, he tilted his head and pulled back my collar, his thumb rubbing over a hickey on my neck. She nearly bit your throat off, didn't she? He looked me in the eye. If Sasha was the one who planted the drug, why did you end up in Selena's bed? He knew. He knew every detail. It was an accident, sir, I replied. Dante, 3 years ago, you told me you were just a bodyguard. The lion reached out and gripped my jaw. And now, you've slept with my daughter. Sir, I can hand in my resignation, I said. The lion laughed, releasing his grip. What are you talking about? You've followed me for years. If you want to leave, I have to let you, don't I? But the lion family doesn't deal in clean business. Once you step inside, there is no way out. He straightened my collar for me. Keep an eye on Selena for me. Don't let her destroy herself. I only have 2 daughters, and I'm counting on her to inherit this empire. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a low, final warning. You too. Play if you want to play, but do not catch feelings. On the one hand, he told me to keep an eye on Selena. On the other, he sent her away for an entire month while dragging me along to various social engagements across the country. Inside a dimly lit private lounge, I was drinking until my head spun. The lion patted the thigh of the girl sitting beside him and gestured for her to move over to me. She stole a glance at me, then asked softly, "Sir, would you like some water?" I opened my eyes halfway to look at her, my gaze eventually drifting toward the boss. He sat beneath the low lights, his face partially obscured by a veil of cigarette smoke. His eyes were cold, observing me. He didn't trust me. He was afraid I was becoming too entangled with Selena, so he was dangling a tasty morsel in front of me to lead me away. I lowered my head and took the water from the girl's hand, drinking so hurriedly that it spilled over the corners of my mouth. As she leaned in to kiss me, I raised my hand, blocking her lips. "You just kissed someone else, didn't you?" I asked. That someone else could only be one man. The girl stared at me, stunned. "Do you hate me?" I managed a faint smile and said gently, "I'm sorry, but yes, a little." She stomped her foot in frustration and ran off to complain to the boss. I just sat there, too lazy to even think. It was all so tedious. Whether it was her figure or her face, she didn't even come close. Damn it. I've been completely spoiled by Selena. After fending off several more rounds of drinks on the boss's behalf, I rushed to the restroom and retched until my stomach was empty. I splashed water on my face, and when I finally looked up, I saw the lion standing behind me in the mirror, offering me a handkerchief. I stared at his hand through the reflection. His knuckles were sharp and prominent, but I didn't take it. "Sir, since Selena came back, she's been working herself to the bone. Do you know why?" I asked. The lion lowered his gaze, giving nothing away. "It's because she wants your recognition. She wants you to look at her, even just for a second. 5 years ago, you sent her abroad but kept Sasha here. Back then, the power balance in Hangzhou was shifting. It was dangerous. You couldn't protect both of them. You could only keep one by your side, leaving the other to fend for herself. You chose Sasha and abandoned Selena." I paused, the silence of the restroom heavy with tension. Too bad fate had other plans. Sasha was kidnapped, and her legs were destroyed. She can't inherit the empire now, so you had no choice but to call Selena back. If Sasha hadn't been hurt, Selena probably would have been exiled for life, wouldn't she? I'd been in the lion's household for 4 years. I'd heard enough rumors to piece the puzzle together. The lion looked up, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror, cold and sharp as glass. I didn't flinch. "I see it all, sir. And you think Selena doesn't understand? She knows. But she's a fool. To this day, she still thinks that if she proves herself, if she brings results, you might look at her differently, at least see her as a daughter." The lion's brow twitched, a rare crack in his stone-cold mask. "Even if the bond between father and daughter is cold, they are still flesh and blood." I continued. "Sir, you can use me like a blade. You could even kill Selena, and it wouldn't matter to you, because you don't care whether she lives or dies." The lion lunged forward, grabbing the back of my neck. "Dante, don't overestimate your importance." I shoved his hand away. "Sir, when you sent Selena abroad, did she beg you to stay?" The lion's eyes darkened, a fleeting moment of shock crossing his face. I sidestepped him and pressed on. "Did she kneel before you? Was it the first time she ever broke, begging you not to cast her out?" He didn't answer. Having followed him for 4 years, I knew his silence was a confirmation. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Not a violent pain, but a suffocating discomfort. I want to hit him. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I couldn't help but spit out one last remark. "No wonder the first time Selena met me, she said she was an orphan, living a life like hers. How is she any different from one?" I had pushed the line too far. As punishment, I was sent away on grueling assignments, running from one city to another for 3 months straight. By the time I returned to Hangzhou, I was leaner and tan from the sun. The moment I stepped off the plane, a message arrived from the boss. "Room 601, Celestial Haven. Pick up Selena." The private lounge was a den of chaos. The door was ajar, but no one noticed me entering. It took me 2 sweeps of the room to find her. She was slumped against a sofa, a bottle of liquor in her hand. 2 young men were flanking her, pouring drinks down her throat. As she finished the glass, one of them began fumbling with the buttons of her blouse. She just leaned her head back, motionless. I loosened my tie and strode forward. One of the boys was practically pressed against her, cupping her face and cooing. "That's right. I'm right here. Goddess, do you want me?" I let out a harsh laugh. "You're her brother now? Then who the hell am I?" Before he could process my words, I shoved him aside. I knelt by the sofa, bracing one hand on the armrest, and tapped Selena's cheek gently. "Your father sent me to get you. Let's go." Selena scanned my face, then reached up to touch my skin, whispering, "Dante, why did you throw me away?" Her voice was a dazed mumble, her eyes glazed. The alcohol here was definitely spiked with something. I scooped her up, carrying her out of my arms and into the car. Suddenly, Selena grabbed my collar, yanking me down toward her. Her lips crashed into mine. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before I gripped the back of her head and kissed her back with a vengeance. This little beast, acting like this just to drag me back into the fire. To hell with it. I might as well kiss her to death and be done with it. Selena flipped the positions, pinning me against the car seat. Her eyes were closed as she trailed kisses from my lips down to my neck, moving with a slow, agonizing deliberation. She murmured my name as tears leaked from her closed lids. She looked devastated, so far gone that I wasn't even sure she knew who she was kissing. If I hadn't shown up, she might have ended up in someone else's bed tonight, sobbing my name while kissing a stranger. How could I even blame her? This was exactly what I feared most. Selena was too extreme. She had zero regard for her own well-being. If I didn't watch over her, she wouldn't care if she ended up broken. Loving someone like that was exhausting. I lived in a constant state of anxiety, terrified that one day her luck would finally run out. Selena, she was never going to change. Since it was already late, I didn't take her back to the estate. Instead, I checked us into a hotel for the night. The next morning, I woke up early. I had just finished washing up and was about to leave while she was still asleep. As I reached for my phone on the bedside table, she suddenly lunged out, grabbing my wrist and pulling me back onto the bed. Her soft body pressed against mine as she buried her head in the crook of my neck. "Dante, don't you love me anymore?" I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. My anger finally boiled over. "You're the one who played me, Selena. You're the one who left for school without a word. You're the one who's been harassing me since you got back. You're the one who went out to get trashed in race cars. If I hadn't picked you up last night, you wouldn't even know whose face was on the pillow next to yours this morning. It's a good thing I don't love you anymore. Because if I still did, I can't imagine how much more you'd find a way to hurt me." By the end of it, my eyes felt stinging and dry. Selena panicked, wrapping her arms around me frantically. "Dante, I wasn't that drunk. I knew it was you. I saw you the second you walked through that door. I was just faking. I wanted to make you jealous. Don't be mad at me. I'm yours. I would never let anyone else into my bed. I'm not so stupid that I don't know who I'm kissing. I know if I ever slept with someone else, you'd leave me for good, wouldn't you?" Her confession only made me angrier. I gave her a sharp shove, knocking her off the bed and onto the floor. I even gave her a light kick for good measure. "Was it fun? You complete idiot." After the dust settled, I returned to the mansion to report to the Lion. In his office, the boss leaned back in his chair. "Dante, there's a project in Central City. I want you to go down there and oversee it for a while." "Thank you, sir," I replied. As I turned to leave, the Lion added one more thing. "Dante, it's better if you don't come back." I nodded silently and walked out. As I passed through the garden, I saw Sasha sitting by the second-story window. She called out to me, "Dante." I stopped and turned around. Sasha smiled down at me, a look that was beautiful yet deathly pale. "If I jump from here, will you catch me?" I looked at her for a long time before speaking. "Sasha, no one can catch you. This is your fate." Then I turned my back and walked away. I whispered a single, "I'm sorry," into the wind. I knew Sasha probably didn't love me all that much. She just viewed me as her property, a toy she refused to share with Selena. Central City wasn't big. It was much smaller than Hangzhou. The Lion had acquired several large companies here, and I had been appointed as a director, which was technically a promotion. When Selena finally tracked me down, I was shirtless, working alongside a crew of laborers moving crates. My father made you a director, not a day laborer, she said, watching me. I didn't answer. I just wiped the sweat from my brow with a towel. Selena immediately began critiquing my office. The desk was ugly. The chair was hideous. Even the decorations on the cabinet didn't escape her judgment. I was so annoyed, I couldn't even find the words to respond. After washing my face, I asked flatly, "What do you actually want?" Selena looked at me. "I want you to come back to Hangzhou with me." "I'm not going," I replied. Selena grew frustrated, her eyes scanning me up and down. "Look at yourself. How are you even living here? You weren't fair-skinned to begin with, but now you're several shades darker. Standing here in front of me, I'd mistake you for a human-shaped bar of dark chocolate." She reached out to touch my head, her voice full of genuine regret. "And what happened to your hair? You shave it all off. Your old style looked so much better. Now, if you stood in a field, I wouldn't be able to tell you apart from a peasant." I felt a sudden urge to laugh. I looked at her and said, "Miss, this is who I am. I belong to this class, and this lifestyle suits me. Just because I put on a suit and a tie doesn't mean I'm anything like you. I'm lucky enough to have the chance to be an assistant director. That's already better than most. I'm comfortable here. I've spent half my life weathering storms. For the rest of it, I just want some peace. I want to live my own life. Hangzhou is too big for me. It doesn't fit." Selena went quiet. She stood in silence for a long time before finally bowing her head. "But I really miss you." I swallowed hard, refusing to engage. "Just forget it. Forget me as soon as you can. Your father is waiting for you to inherit the family empire." Selena snapped her eyes up, her gaze heavy with melancholy. "Dante, sometimes I really want to kiss that mouth of yours until it's shredded. Inheriting the empire, stop saying that. I'll make sure the lion never gets any grandkids." She lunged toward me, and I struggled to dodge her lips. But Selena refused to let go. Instead, she reached for my belt. "I happen to love chocolate," she whispered. "Hurry up and let me have a bite." That night, she told me the truth about her past. Years ago, her mother had been kidnapped by one of the lion's enemies. While her mother was being held captive, the boss was at his mistress's bedside, waiting for Sasha to be born. By the time he arrived to save his wife, she was already gone. "Dante," Selena said, clinging to me as her hatred for her father spilled out. "No one ever protected me except you. No one ever told me I was worth loving. Before I met you, I didn't even know that was possible. I was so naive, wasn't I? I'm sorry. I only kept testing you because I needed to prove you'd never stop loving me." She was a mess of tears and jagged breaths as she looked up at me. "Dante, please don't leave me again. Teach me. I'll work hard to learn how to love you back properly." The pillow was soaked with her tears. Her entire body felt as fragile as water. I stroked her hair and pulled her into a long, heavy embrace. "All right," I sighed. "Go to sleep, you crybaby." The next day, Selena received a call from the boss ordering her back to Hangzhou. I stayed behind in Central City, drinking tea, playing cards, and watching the sunset, living the quiet life of an old man. Whenever she could steal the time, Selena would fly to Central City. I would sit by her side and just listen to her talk. When it was time for her to go, I never tried to make her stay. I would just go back to my tea, my cards, and my sunsets. During one of her visits, as she was preparing to leave, Selena looked at me with a hollow sadness. "Dante, I feel like you don't love me the way you used to." I saw the disappointment in her eyes. She was 26 now, but the way she looked at me, burning with intensity, was exactly how she looked at 18. Full of confusion and hidden anxiety. I knew exactly what she wanted to hear, but I hesitated. I was afraid that if I said it, she would start wasting her time on games again. And I didn't have any more time to waste. But finally, I chose to be honest. "Selena," I said softly, "it's not that I don't love you anymore." She stared at me for a moment, then leaned in until our foreheads pressed together, her nose brushing mine. "It's okay, Dante," she whispered. "You don't have to worry about it. Even if you don't love me as much as before, it doesn't matter. Just stay here, so I can love you." Not long after, a massive conflict erupted between Selena and the lion. It started because she had stolen her household registration papers and dragged me to the registry office to get married. The boss called Central City livid. Selena spent the entire night on the balcony being screamed at over the phone. I could hear his muffled voice booming through the receiver. "If you like him that much, just keep him. Why the hell do you need a marriage certificate? What kind of family doesn't have a marriage certificate? Selena shot back. Is a piece of paper the only thing that gives you peace of mind? He roared. I didn't hear the rest, but the boss's rage echoed through the quiet night. Yet, after the storm of shouting passed, he finally conceded. Later, the lion called me personally. You've got real talent, kid. Selena has only bowed her head to me twice in her entire life, and both times were for you. If it wasn't to protect you from me, she wouldn't have called me father for the rest of her days. I gave a soft laugh and closed my eyes, whispering, Did you say thank you yet? When I looked up, I saw Selena out on the balcony, fussing over 2 potted plants I had nearly killed. Selena, I called out. She turned her head, and I said the words I had been holding back. I love you. Her eyes lit up instantly, bright and sparkling, looking exactly like that 18-year-old girl I met in the alley all those years ago.